This video covers how to conjugate verbs in the present tense passive voice and how to translate them. So last night I had you memorize those endings. So in your notebook, write out those endings and we'll practice them on the screen as well. So I'm just going to quickly set up a basic chart. So I've got my singular and my plural, and then a first person, second person, and third person. And now I'm going to fill in those forms. So those were are, ris, ter, mer, many, unter. Okay, so we've got those endings. And these are our passive endings. So when we put these onto a verb, instead of ost, mustis, ent, we'll make passive forms instead of active forms. And we will be discussing a lot in class what passive means. So if you're confused about that, don't focus on your confusion right now. Hang on to your questions, ask them in class, but right now focus on just learning how to put these forms together. And I will in this video talk about how to translate, but we'll really discuss the difference in class. Okay, so now that we have those endings, we want to think about how to put them onto a verb. And so I'm going to start with the first conjugation with a nice standard easy verb, porto, portare, portavi, portatus. And make sure you're taking notes, that you're doing these charts along with me so you're getting some good practice. Since I'm conjugating in the present tense, I'm coming to the second principal part and I'm taking my stem, port, and I'm going to put that on all 6 of my forms. Okay, and then I'm going to think about my connecting vowel. And since it's porto, portare, I'm in the first conjugation, so I'm going to use an A. And when you think about your normal declension, if an A appears, whatever appears in the present, whatever vowel is there, so which is usually an O, but sometimes it's an EO or an IO, we're going to use that instead in the first person. And you can tell that just by looking here. I can see porto, so I want to keep that O, basically, instead of using the A. So what had happened there when we made porto is we actually had an A, and then the O came along, opened up like a big giant Pac-Man, and ate the A up, and so the A disappeared. So when I put that into this new chart, I'm going to keep the O and not have the A, but I'll have the A everywhere else. So this is exactly what you did normally. So normally I would take this set and then I'd add down here st, mus, tis, ent. But that would make active forms. Instead I want passive forms. So I'm going to add my new endings, the ones that I have up here. So I'm going to have are, ris, ter, mer, many, unter. So basically this form right here will look exactly like your first principal part with an R at the end. And these passive means that the subject receives the action. We're going to talk about this a lot in class, but I want you to be able to start writing out the English meanings too. So in this case, porto means to carry, so I am carried. Whereas portaris would be you are carried. And then portator, he, she, or it is carried. Portamur, we are carried. Portamini, you all are carried. And then portantur, they are carried. So porto, your first principal part, means I carry, versus portor, I am carried. So in the first one, porto, the subject I does the carrying. In our second example, portor, the subject I experiences the carrying. So I am carried. And that's the difference between active and passive, which we will go over a ton in class. So I've got those same endings, and now I'm going to look at something in the second conjugation. So for an example, we're going to do moveo, movere, movi motus, meaning to move. And if I take that MOV, I get my stem. I can also look here and see that I want to keep the EO. So there I got my MOV. I'm adding in the E to connect that I know from the fact that this is second conjugation. And then I'm just going to add on my new endings, R, ris, ter, mer, mini, inter. So check your notes right now. You should have 2 verb charts, one for Porto and one for Moeo, written out in your own handwriting. So Moeo, let's write down these translations. First person I, passive am, whatever this means, which is move. So I am moved. Moeris, you are moved. Moetur, he, she, or it is moved. Moemur, we are moved. Moemini, you all are moved. Moentur, they are moved. So basically we're doing the subject plus a form of the verb to be that's conjugated to match the subject in English, plus the form of the verb in the past participle, which is the ed form. It doesn't actually add any past tense. That's just how English puts this verb together. So on some of our verbs that are irregular, like sing, we say the song is sung instead of singed. So those will come naturally to you. Okay, now we're going to look at one in the third conjugation, and this one is really important that you're paying a lot of attention to. So I'm going to look at the verb mito, mittere. I know that it's third conjugation because of the short ere. My stem mit is left over, so I can put that on all my forms. I can also, on the first person form, keep my O, because I know I'm going to need that. Then third conjugation does the fish hook. So I'm going to add in eyes. And then, sorry, for the last one it shouldn't be an I. The last one is a U, because that's the whole point of my fish hook. O, I all the way down to a U. Then I'm going to add my endings R, ris, ter, mer, mini, inter. However, this is special. Right here in the second person singular, this short I is too weak to stand between these consonants, the T here and the R here. And so over time, the pronunciation of this I shifted to that of a short E, and the I went away. So we actually have mitor, miteris with an E, mititor, mitimor, mitimini, mitumter. And that will happen in all third conjugation, including third IO, but only in the third conjugation. It will not happen anywhere else. Everywhere else you'll see the normal stem vowel. So this is really important that you're remembering this right here, that the short I becomes an E. And to translate I am, I'm going to put in a form of to be after that, I am, and then whatever idea this verb is in its ed form, but since it's a verb send, we say sent. So I am sent, you are sent, he, she, it is sent, we are sent, you all are sent, they are sent. Okay, and now we're going to look at our last conjugation, the fourth conjugation. I've got my verb audio, audire, audivi, auditus to hear. I see my stem is aud. I'll use that all the way through. Third IO will look a lot like this, except that third IO, like any third, has to do that special shift of the short I to the short E in the second person. And a fourth won't have to do that, because the I in the fourth conjugation, if you're looking at it right there, is long. I'm going to look back to my first principal part and see that I have an IO, so I'm going to want that there. Everywhere else, I'm going to have my fish hook with the I. So remember, that was one of the things that made the fourth special, is that we always keep the I. Then I'm going to add R, ris, ter, mer, mini, inter. And you'll notice that right here, that strong I stays. We don't have to change it like we did in the third. So that's only in the third conjugation. So I end up with audior, audiris, auditur, audimor, audimini, audientur. I, the verb to be, so I am audioed, I am heard. You are heard. he, she, it is heard, we are heard, you all are heard, they are heard. And that's our passive voice. So here you can see all of the forms that we just went over. I also added in a third IO. So right here is your third IO. And so you can compare all of these all the way across. So we're using the same endings, R, ris, ter, mer, many, inter, on our stem. And what changes based on conjugation is the connection. So since porto, portare is first, we're using an A to connect. Moeo is second, so we're using is to connect. Mito and yakio are third conjugation, so we're using the fish hook. But we have that special change happening here with the short I becoming a short E. And then fourth conjugation, we connect with the fish hook, but making sure there's an I on all of our forms. So that's true for both of these, except only third IO has this special E happening. Third and third IO, but of third versus fourth. The third IO has it and the fourth doesn't. So for your practice, you'll practice one of each of these. So you should already have these three charts and this last one. So we didn't go over yakio specifically. So you should have these already written out in your notebook with translations. Now you're going to practice with trajo, amo, skio, facio, and habeo in the passive. And remember that when you're translating the forms into English, you're going to do the subject. So for example, I, so I'll put an example at the bottom, plus the helping verb to be. So in this case, we would say am for a first person singular example. And then the verb in its ed form. So if your verb was ayudo, to help, I am helped. So that's an example of how you're going to put your translations together. So write out those 5 verb charts, and I will see you tomorrow with that completed. Thank you.